So how do you know if your landing page is working? If you haven't already, check out our previous videos on how to set up a landing page, how to track data, and making sure that you're getting the most out of this. If you're not tracking the right data, you'll never get the insights you need in order to build fast, effective landing pages and really drive that conversion that you're looking for. So just to refresh your memory, this is my fake electric RV company. This is the landing page that we, tested. Here's some of the content on it. Keep in mind this landing page was built for a very specific purpose. We created an ad that was about how you can turn parking into the easiest part of your trip. We created this landing page. All the language on it specifically speaks to that kind of point. And what we wanted to do is run some tests to see what people were doing. Now, again, I'm doing this just as a fake page, but I'm going to walk you through some of the data that I collected. Even though this is a fake example, I'm going to tell you some of the things that I notice on real pages all the time. So we can start looking at what things we need to change, how we can run additional tests, and how we can turn your landing page into something that is really, truly high converting. Normally, I love looking at data through Google Analytics. Because this is a fake site and there's not really a lot of data, it's not going to be that compelling. So I'm going to show you some examples of what we're doing with Clarity and how we might find some of those activities or those key videos so that we can go and make the changes that we really require. One of the first things I'm going to show you is why we added those UTM codes. So if we go up to this filters, we can now go to traffic and we can start doing things like refining this down to what my source is. Because we had ads both on the Meta platform and on Google, we have some traffic from both. We also created a medium that was consistent. We called it CPC in this case, but you could call it whatever you want. The idea is that now I can quickly and easily filter out normal website traffic from the campaigns that I'm actively running. Again, part of this is trying to narrow the traffic down to an ideal customer segment. So we're going to do something like this to look at what traffic came in through my campaigns. And we know that because these pages are no index and I'm driving specific paid traffic that's already targeted, we know these are our ideal clients. So we're getting them to the page and we're going to look at what they do once they get there. It's going to narrow down my search results. I've only got 4 users. Again, we made this one up, so there's not real users at all, but I have 4 users and I can go over and I can watch the videos. So from here, you can also see that there's a couple from Facebook and a couple from Google. And what I'm going to do is go through these videos just to kind of give you a quick idea of what people are doing. So that one is not quite a bounce because it wasn't an instantaneous leave, the full content loaded, but they weren't really interested. Now, typically, if this is what most of your traffic is doing, honestly, there's a problem. It's an indication that whatever ad or whatever you were trying to do to try and get them to your landing page resulted them in finding a page that just wasn't for them. Now, that could be messaging. It could be the background image. It could be a lot of different things. This is probably the most challenging one that we're going to talk about today, but it is something that can be solved. Sometimes this is about going back and testing those pain points again, figuring out the right audience and making sure that when they land on this page, this is something that they're actively looking for. If I click on an ad that says, make parking your travel trailer the best part of your trip, and I land here and I don't quite understand what the solution is, maybe I need to be more forward with what my actual solution is. Maybe I need to put a product image or talk about more of what's happening. This is one of those things where we can play with a bunch of different ways of presenting the same solution. Maybe we want to talk about how it's software enabled or it's a physical product. At this point, I'm not really sure what the right solution is. So this is the opportunity to keep testing. This is the stuff that you could do to prove that you have real market fit. In the case that you already have an existing product and people are doing this, check your audience, check a bunch of different things, make sure you're tracking the right people and get them highly engaged in that product. In this video, you can tell the user's already more engaged. They're starting to go through, they're looking around, they're reading the content, they're reviewing some of the pieces. I'm going to pause it here for a second. One of the things that we can do is start changing some of these key value propositions. These are the things that we can keep tweaking and modifying to see if it drives stronger engagement with some of these specific calls to action. Now, you can run this test by running this for 100 views and then change some content, run the exact same thing with another 100 views and see which one drives a higher conversion. Those things are all really beneficial. All right, let's keep going. So now you can see the user's gone and highlighted some content and they've clicked that button. That's what we consider a success. At this point, if you already have a product, this would be where your cart is and you're going to go through the checkout process. If you don't already, collecting a form or something like that just shows additional engagement. Now, this user is going beyond and they're starting to look for what else can I find out about the product. They've clicked on some menu options, which we didn't actually hook up, but now they're going to scroll through, they're going to look around, they're going to see what they can find. And ideally, we continue to keep them engaged. At this point, they've left because there's nothing else for them to find on that page. Now, this video is one of my favorite kinds. You can see they landed on the landing page and they've immediately gone over and they started to look for an About Us section. Often, that's an indication that they're interested in the product, but they don't really have faith that you're a real brand. It's something that I personally think is a great thing to see, and there's a lot of ways that we can go about trying to fix this. Now, for this example, we don't actually have an About page, so there's nothing really for them to do. If we did have an About Us page, I would start putting up a bunch of content that talks about where the product came. I would look at what things they interact with on that page, and I pull some of that content either to the landing page or at least to the home page to show that we are a real company and that we have something valuable and they can be comfortable in making the decision to buy this product. One thing that I always love to mention is that even if you create a really compelling About Us page, one thing that a lot of people forget is adding a call to action on that page. It's great that you've done a beautiful write-up and you have a lot of descriptive content about what you're doing and why, but if you're not driving people back to that purchase, you're missing out. So make sure your About Us page always has a way to pull them back into the purchase flow. Okay, so let's talk about the landing page in terms of some of the things we're going to track or have tracked and what we really need to do next. So the very first thing is we're checking for bounce rates. If everybody's showing up and nobody's doing anything on this page, or most people aren't, chances are there's either a lack of congruency or the solution that I got to wasn't what I was expecting and I immediately left. This can happen for a variety of different reasons and is really common in the B2B space. We can actually use this page as part of our education. So if I land here and my expectations are not exactly met, can we talk them through that process? Can we get them to engage in the content in a more meaningful way? Let's say instead of an electric RV company, I was building a B2B SaaS platform. It could be that I'm expecting you to help me with my accounting. And when I land here, you tell me that you have a physical piece of hardware. Well, that's immediately shocking and not what I expected. So instead of showing me the hardware or instead of talking about how it's a hardware solution, maybe walk me through how this thing works. Maybe tell me more about the benefit and build up the story as to why this physical piece of hardware makes the absolute most sense. There's lots of things that we could do and we can test with these landing pages to build that congruency and to build a story to show that we're going to give that value or that promise that we gave our customers is going to be delivered at the end of the day with this purchase. Another thing that we can test that can help you decide what features to build is measure the difference between how often a call to action is pressed versus what content you have on your page. The placement and priority of those items can have a huge impact on whether people want to engage or click. So you could start playing with moving your features around or changing the language or changing the features so that if you're in early product development, you can prioritize the features that are going to drive the most action. If you already have an established product, it's still a matter of just changing the priority. Which features or benefits drive the biggest engagement on this page, which will in turn change how you market your product. And if you find that nothing's working, it's a great time to go back through your old pain points and start trying to build those back into this platform. One of the other things you could do is simply just change the language. Now, again, this is my crappy example where I have I am a button, but changing the language of get started, try now, enroll for free. There's so many different things. And one of the best things you can do, especially with a high value item, is to not necessarily make them make that purchase right away. You could have two different options on this page of one could be get started. One could be download a case study, download detailed information, book a specific demo. There's all kinds of different things that we could do within this page. The goal is to get that interaction. So if it's too expensive, then Create another way for them to learn more, keep in touch, and ideally capturing an email address so that you can send them new content on a very regular basis. Ultimately, the goal with the landing page is using it as a test bed. So watch what people do. If they're going back to your primary page, it's because they haven't found the information they're looking for, but they are interested in your solution. If they're not clicking on the call to action, maybe it's because it wasn't what they expected, or maybe it's just the language of that button doesn't quite resonate with them. Some people don't want to book calls. Some people don't want to book demos. Some people just want to make a direct purchase. Play with the language, play with the flow. Make sure with complicated purchases, you're educating the user and use these landing pages to test and iterate on that. If you're at the very early stages of product development, getting somebody to move through this page, get to a form, and give an email address is a huge win. It will give you better indications of who's interested and have an email list so that when you launch, you can launch directly to those customers. Now, I want to start setting some expectations here. Building these pages is not a guaranteed success. It requires practice. It requires iteration. It requires testing. Make sure you have the data. Make sure you're driving the right audience. If it's not working, try changing the audience. Try changing the messaging. Try changing the renders of the solution. There are so many things that you can test that it's really important to build that funnel up, to show real interaction and get the metrics that you're looking for in order to build confidence in your solution and to make sure you're building the product that serves a real customer need. The one thing I will tell you is that if you want to build an inbound funnel, there's no excuses at this point. If you can't drive traffic and you can't drive engagement, the inbound funnel won't work. Make sure you're spending the time to build up this process. Now, I'm not saying that you can't build a successful business without an inbound funnel, but it will change the way that you're approaching it. You can still use these pages to build email lists and to build customer segments, which is a fantastic way of going out and approaching the outbound side. But you have to be able to drive that conversion. In the next video, we will be talking about alternative ways of building your customer list. This will not be about direct sales. It will be about creating strong engagement, creating really compelling downloadable content, capturing emails, and turning that into your long-term sales channel. What we're talking about is driving the right traffic, getting people interested and engaged in that page. If you can't do this, there's a problem because it means that whatever you are offering doesn't align with customer expectations. Keep in mind that it doesn't mean that you have a bad solution. It means that maybe the story doesn't resonate. Maybe the language isn't right. Maybe you need to change some small details that will help drive that conversion. Keep tracking data. Understand the impact of everything that you're doing and do small incremental changes. Every time you change something, run another test. So keep in mind, there's a million things you can change on any page. There's ways to test pricing and everything else. Just keep testing, drive the right traffic, analyze the results, and make the next change. Even if you run your first test and you already have conversions, that's fantastic, but don't stop there. Make some changes and see if you can improve that even more.